So we're going to talk a little bit about terminology with polynomials. We remember that an expression that has one term is called a monomial. So an expression like 5x squared would be a monomial, one term. A binomial, bi means two, so an expression like 5x squared plus 7, an expression that has two terms, is called a binomial. And consequently, if the expression has three terms, like 4x squared plus 3x minus 9, that would be a trinomial. And then anything larger than a trinomial would be called a binomial. A polynomial, excuse me, I'm sorry. Anything larger than a trinomial would be just called a polynomial. In fact, a monomial, a binomial, and a trinomial are actually polynomials. They just have special names. So what we're going to do today, or this evening, is we're going to talk about how do we add, subtract, and multiply polynomials together. So we need to remember that we only add like terms, and that when we multiply powers that have the same base, we keep the base and we add the exponents. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to add these two polynomials together. They're actually trinomials. 4x squared plus 3x minus 2 plus 6x squared minus x plus 1. So what we're going to do is we're going to look for like terms. So I see 4x squared plus 6x squared, and we're going to add those together, and I get 10x squared. I see 3x and negative 1x. 3x plus negative 1x is 2x. And then I have negative 2 plus 1, which is negative 1. So when I add polynomials together, all I'm going to do is add like terms. Very simple. Okay, same thing when we subtract. The only thing here is we have to be careful when we're subtracting, because I'm subtracting this whole polynomial. Let's see, I've got 5x cubed minus 6x squared plus 3. And then I'm going to subtract 4x cubed plus 2x plus 7. So I'm subtracting this whole polynomial. So I need to remember to distribute this minus sign. A lot of people think, well, what I could do is I could remember to add the opposite. I could change this minus sign to addition and make everything after it the opposite. That would be a good thing to do. Then we could just remember to add. So we've got 5x cubed and negative 4x cubed, which is just x cubed. We've got negative 6x squared, and I don't see any other x squared, so I'm just going to put negative 6x squared. And I also have a negative 2x that does not have a like term to add to, so I'm going to write negative 2x. And then I have 3 plus negative 7, which is negative 4. So we remember that we're adding like terms. Okay, so that's how we add and subtract. Very simple, combining like terms. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to multiply a monomial by a trinomial. So we've got 5x squared times 3x squared minus 2x plus 10. So all I need to do is I need to distribute. So let's see, I'm going to multiply 5x squared times 3x squared. So I need to remember that when I'm multiplying powers with the same base, I want to add exponents. So I'm going to say 5x squared plus times 3x squared is 15. 5 times 3 is 15. X to the fourth. I added my exponents. 2 plus 2 is 4. Okay, minus 5x squared times negative 2x, which is negative 10. 5 times 2 is 10. X squared times x is x to the third. And 5x squared times 10, which is 50x squared. And that's it, distributing. So we remember to distribute, and we also remember that when we're multiplying powers, we're going to add the exponents. Okay, so the next example, we're going to multiply a binomial times a binomial. Now, I'm pretty sure we all remember that when we do that, we want to do the FOIL method. First, 3x times 6x is 18x squared. Outer, 3x times negative 1, negative 3x, and inner, 2 times 6x is 12x, and last would be minus 2, and then I always want to add like terms when I'm finished. So I get 18x squared plus 9x minus 2. That's it. Okay, all right, the next one is something that we've already reviewed together in class. We're going to square a binomial. So we have two ways that we can square a binomial. The first way is to remember that squaring something means to multiply it by itself. So we could write out 4x minus 3 times 4x minus 3 and then just do FOIL. We could just do that. Or we could remember the shortcut. The shortcut would be to square the first term, 16x squared, multiply the two terms together, and then double it. So multiply the two terms together, that would be negative 12x, double it to get negative 24x, and then square the last term. Negative 3 times squared would be 9. Okay, so that's a review for sure. And then the last two are things that we haven't talked about yet. So let's spend a bit more time on this. We're going to multiply a binomial times a trinomial. Okay, so if I were you, my advice would be to set it up like this. We're going to set it up just like we're multiplying 3-digit numbers with a 2-digit number. We're going to multiply 2x squared plus x minus 4 times x minus 3. We're going to set it up just like this. That way we remember, because what we have to do is we have to distribute two things. We have to distribute the negative 3 to all three terms in the trinomial, and we also have to distribute the x to all three terms in the trinomial. So in order for us not to forget any of these 6 multiplications that we need to do, if we set it up like this, it's going to help us to remember to multiply, but also to add up our like terms. It's going to line up our like terms. So I'm going to multiply negative 3 times negative 4 times x, and then times 2x squared, and then I'm going to do the same thing with the x. So I'm going to say negative 3 times negative 4 is positive 12. And I'm going to say negative 3 times x is negative 3x. And negative 3 times 2x squared is negative 6x squared. Okay? And then I'm going to go back and multiply the x times all three terms in the trinomial. So I'm going to say x times 4 is positive 4x. X times x is positive x squared. And x times 2x squared is 2x cubed. So if I set it up like this, then I see that all my like terms are already on top of each other. They're lined up, ready for me to add together. So I have 2x cubed. Negative 6x squared plus x squared is negative 5x squared. Negative 3x plus 4x is x. Plus 12. And that's it. Okay? And then we have one more. The last one is to cube a binomial. So we don't have, there is a shortcut, but it's not very short if you ask me. So what we're going to do is we're going to multiply 2x minus 1 times 2x minus 1 times 2x minus 1. And first, we're going to multiply the first two by doing FOIL. And I remember the shortcut, 4x squared minus 2x and minus 2x is minus 4x. Plus 1. So I've got a trinomial times a binomial now. So I'm going to set it up exactly the same way that I set up the last one. I've got a trinomial times a binomial. And I'm going to set it up to multiply so that I can line up my like terms. So let's see. I've got negative 1 times all three terms, and then 2x times all three terms. So I'm going to start with the negative 1. Negative 1 times 1 is negative 1. Negative 1 times negative 4x is positive 4x. Negative 1 times 4x squared is negative 4x squared. Okay, so now I'm going to go back and distribute the 2x. 2x times 1 is positive 2x. 2x times negative 4x is negative 8x squared. And then 2x times 4x squared is positive 8x to the third. So once again, my like terms are already lined up, ready for me to add together. 8x cubed minus 12x squared plus 6x minus 1. And I'm done.